to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello, Be Awesome listeners. This is episode 34 of the Be Awesome podcast, and I am super excited to be in my hometown of Easton, Massachusetts. It's been a while, and this actually is going to be a delayed podcast, so I'm really unsure of when it's going to launch, probably in the next couple weeks anyway. But it's August 5th. It's a beautiful sunny day, and we're inside, and I'm with a good friend, Marc, and actually flew up a friend of mine, Jesse Danner from North Carolina. And this podcast is pretty interesting. Started about a month ago. I got Marc had sent a message to me and asked about advertising, if I was pursuing ads for people to be on my podcast, and he wanted to pay me, and that was exciting because it's always great when somebody wants to pay you, and I declined. And I declined for a couple reasons. I've been approached a few times in the last 2 or 3 months about different ways to monetize your podcast, which ultimately that's what you want to do. But one of the things that I never want to do is monetize it based on things that I don't believe in. And so we had a good conversation. I asked him about his business, which the reason why the podcast, we're not sure when it's going to launch, is because it's going to be in line with the close to launch date of his new business. And got to talking to him about life and everything, and found some really interesting tie-ins that I think the world needs to hear about and learn, and have a real life story that goes with it. And that's why I flew Jesse up. So full disclosure, Be Awesome flew Jesse up. He's staying up here on Be Awesome. He's going to eat pizza on us and have a good time. And then hopefully when Marc's wildly successful, and hopefully this video plays, you can see his office, how it started. It's actually nicer than Jeff Bezos' office in 1999. So I suspect that he's going to be in direct competition with him in short time. So first, welcome Marc. Welcome to the podcast, and glad you could give us some time and give us your space.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you for having me. This is a really big deal to me. Thank you, Jesse, for flying up, taking the time. I know flying out on a Monday morning is not the most fun thing in the world, and you're staying the night up here, and I can't say how thankful I am to both of you. This is the first time I've done anything like this. And I'm really excited to share my story, its origins, hear Jesse's story, and it's going to be a good time. Yeah,
so let's talk about first time, and let's talk about your life a little bit, because from the outside, kind of looking in, your life was pretty well put together. You're a local selectman, so you're a public servant for the town of Easton, which we really appreciate. We're not going to talk politics, but that's a time consumer. You had a job that I gather you liked your boss. You had a good gig.
It's an awesome job. It was an incredible place I worked. It was. I'm guessing your question probably is like, what made you take a leap when you had everything? You had what looked like.
You had what seemed to be a right. relatively well put together. Everything's in order. Don't rock the boat. Gig going on.
As far as, my evolution, my new life, I'd say, started after my son was born. I saw everything kind of shifted and changed in the way I saw things, and my belief system started to change, and that was like the birth of the new me, so to speak. And so it took me 5 years to figure myself out. And after that, I found a job with a great company. It's a local company. And the gentleman that I worked for was... I didn't know too much about him, but he turned out to be an incredible businessman, a good man, a gentleman, husband, father, a kind man. And for years, I always thought that in order to be really successful in business, there had to be elements of you that were almost cutthroat or just very harsh, very brutal. And to a degree, I did some of that, and then after 5 years of figuring out that wasn't me, I was being somebody that's not me, and then going to this new company, and seeing how this man built his company, his creation, he was an absolute inspiration to me. I learned that you can be the creator of your own company. You can be a gentleman. You can be all those things that I aspire to be. And he led by example in everything he did. And so when I left there, it was one of the hardest decisions. It was one of the hardest conversations, because I wasn't leaving him because of dissatisfaction. I was leaving him because of inspiration. So, over the past 5 years, 9 years, however you want to call it, there was something that came into my mind every day, and that was it was one of the things I said to my boss when I went in to give my notice. I said, every day I come in here, it's a choice. I choose to come in here. I choose to not do what it is that I want to do. I choose not to go and build my creation just as you have. Every single day, it's a choice. And then I think I read something where 1/3 of your life you're working towards another person's creation. And that really stuck with me. That started to gnaw at me every day, where you're being compensated for it, of course, but at the end of the day, you're still working towards another person's creation. And that really started to build in me that, I'm 38. I have 30 years ahead of me of work, reasonably speaking. For the next 30 years, why don't I be in charge of my own creation? Why don't I be the creator of what I want, instead of working towards somebody else's creation? Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all. There are so many people that they get up every day and they go to work and they have amazing lives just as I had, and if I continue that path, it would still be a wonderful life. But something inside of you, if you're that type of person, starts to really burn, and you can't live that anymore. And the simplicity of it's a choice. What do you choose? It just got to be too heavy a burden, so I choose to build my company.
That ought to be, when you talk about, you choose to go to work, and most people leave their job because they're dissatisfied
Yes.
or unhappy, and for you to say, I'm perfectly happy,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be happier,
Right.
potentially, with an unknown. There's a big, huge, hairy unknown out there of, what it is. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. There's a difference between running from something and running to something.
Yep.
People often fall into the trap of running from something, and you're going to fall into the same cycle, I believe, unless you find that something that you're running to.
Yep. So you gave your notice. You've been working on this for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your creation and what you envision and what it does and how it's going to change the world or make the world a better place.
It has the ability to change the world. It has the ability to save lives. I 100% believe that. 6 years ago, before I started with this new company, I was at a kind of a crossroads with the company I used to work for, where I was thoroughly dissatisfied with work. It was not an environment that I wanted to be in. And so every day I would think about, what can I do? What can I do? So one night, it was June 3rd, 2013, actually. I was talking with my wife, and it was 11 o'clock at night, and I remember lying in bed. I said, I got an idea. We got to write this down. And it was a company we came up with. We called it Trusted Home Maintenance. And it was a company that went around. The idea was that it would go around and change air filters, water filters, provide smoke detectors, CO detectors, batteries, and replace them, fire extinguishers, and a whole other slew of things. It was huge. It was too big to start with anything, but it was just where my mind was going. I worked on it for a while, but then I walked away from it, and I walked away from it because I don't think I was mentally ready, emotionally ready, financially ready, professionally ready to do it. I needed to work for the man that I worked for, to see what I saw, to then go back to it and say, this is a great idea. I want to simplify it, recreate it, and go with it, do something with it. And so the new company is called Ion Home and Business. And Ion Home Kit is the website that I'm going to ask people to go to. By the time this airs, the website will be live, so I hope people go check it out and get a subscription. But what it is clean air, clean water, and a safe environment. Clean air by way of air filters, directly delivered to your home through a subscription service. Clean water by way of water filters, by way of direct delivery, subscription, direct to your home when you need it. And the safe environment there's a few different levels. In the process of creating this, I thought to myself, what is it that people absolutely need in their homes, which they neglect, but that they're already using, but not as much as they should. Clean air is important. Most people push those air filters way past their life, so you're not getting the cleanest air you can for a small amount of money too. Same thing with filtered water in your refrigerator under the counter. And then it got into the safe environment. One night, I remember being in bed and I woke up and it was beep, 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 chirp, chirp, chirp. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And go looking around and it's one of the smoke detectors going off. There's no fire. There's no CO in the house. There's nothing happening. So, they all go off. And this is like 2 a.m. I have 2 kids. They're sound asleep. And so what you wind up doing is you take every one in the second floor out. You take all the batteries out. And then this residual juice left in the detector. So they're still chirping. So at 2 a.m, I take all the smoke detectors and I put them outside so they'll chirp outside so we can go back to bed. There was no fire. But that got me to thinking how important that is, and how the reason why they were chirping was because the batteries were dead. Mm-hmm. I didn't think to change them. Usually you change it when they chirp, but the batteries
which always
were
happens
dead.
at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Always happens at 2 a.m, or they're broken. They don't work. Mm-hmm. They also chirp that way too. So one of them didn't work at all. So it got me to thinking, well, what if there was a fire at 2 a.m, and these things with the dead batteries and the one of them that didn't work at all? It's so simple a task.
Yep.
That is so people don't put in the front of their mind that can save lives. It can cost lives too, right? If you don't pay attention to it. So one thing I had been doing I can't remember since when, but I've always slept with the fire extinguisher under my bed. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I learned it, don't know where I saw it, but I think in my old house I just had an extra one. I said, I'm going to put it under my bed just in case. And my belief was, my mindset was, if there's a fire in the middle of the night, if one of those smoke detectors failed or the batteries failed, which they did in my house, thank God there was not a fire, but if there was a fire, and I woke up, my very first thought would be the kids. Not the house, the kids. I got to get the kids out. And what is my line of defense to go get my kids? Because I would die saving my kids. No problem. I'm sure most parents would. But I think if there's preparations that can be put in place so that you'll have a fighting chance in that effort, then you should do it. And that was a fire extinguisher under the bed. So I believe that every home should have not only a fire extinguisher on their first floor, but in their second floor, in their closet or under their bed, as the last line of defense. So that's also part of this clean air, clean water, safe environment package that when people go to the site, they'll set up their kit, and there'll be different kits, so it'll come 4 times a year, and your first kit will be fire extinguishers, batteries for your smoke detectors, or new smoke detectors, which I provide that as well, a first aid kit, air filter, and water filter. However many air filters you need, however many water filters you need. And then your second kit, obviously you don't need a fire extinguisher with the second mm-hmm. quarter, but you need an air filter. Third quarter, you're going to need batteries to change out your smoke detectors. You're going to need an air filter again, and you're going to need a water filter because you need that every 6 months. These are basic things that people are already buying, but people don't pay attention to it, and it's absolutely essential.
Yeah. Well, and most aren't buying it, and
no.
and
I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah. Well, you were just talking about your 2 a.m. call, and it's a terrible story, but it's to show how often it happens and how real it is. There was a 58-year-old locally that was was killed in a fire over the weekend because the smoke detectors weren't working. He died of smoke inhalation. He didn't die because of the fire. He died because of the smoke, and it was because he wasn't alerted, and the smoke overcame him. So it's real with regard to that. And I've done it, and you're right. It's 2 a.m. every time. It's like the battery has a clock on it, and it's like, I'm going to tell you guys because you didn't proactively do the work. I'm going to just go ahead and start chirping at 2 a.m. because I've had the same thing with our carbon monoxide sensors. You know, the interesting thing about the filters, when you talk about it and you say everyone does it, everyone doesn't do it. Everyone doesn't pay attention to it. A couple factors into that. They don't put a calendar in and say, hey, I put the... You know, every filter has a date that has a line. Air filter has a line on it that says date, and you put the date that you put it in.
Yeah, that's right.
But nobody's periodically going over to their intake and pulling the filter down.
Today the date?
When did I put it down? And nobody's going to their computer or someplace to say, oh, hey, let me put in for my quarterly filter change. I mean, look at what we do with our oil change for our cars. We have to have a sticker right in front of us every time we get in.
And we still neglect it. I know I do.
Right. So for this program where you take on the burden of changing those filters, and I know I've had 2 experiences in the last year personally. We have a well, and the bladder inside for people that don't have wells, you have this big tank in your basement, and it basically has a bladder inside of it that you have to bleed every 6 months to a year. And over time, the bladder expands and contracts and has all sorts of issues, and that's what gives you your pressure for pulling the water. If that bladder breaks, all hell breaks loose in your basement. That's what happened. And what was interesting was the first question that the repairman said was, when was the last time you changed your filter? Whether it had anything to do with the replacement or not and the breaking of the pump, that was the first question he asked. Maybe you could tell the pump that it wasn't 6 months ago that the filter was changed. It was probably a year or more ago. And then the other one was our air conditioning went. And of course, it was the hottest day of the year. And it was hard to find somebody to come out, and he went out and he cleaned the outside of the units and asked, how often do you change your filters? And for me, off the top of my head, and I work for a facility management company that specializes in preventive maintenance as my day job, so I'm a little bit more privy as to knowing when I did and everything else. But in talking, he says you don't have no idea how many people don't change their filters at all.
So you're not only getting dirtier air, but you're putting a serious strain on your system.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A very serious
thousands
strain on your
and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And when you're putting that strain on your system from the filter standpoint, people don't understand this. If you're listening to this and you've never changed your filters in your air conditioning unit, on the hottest days of the year, when it's working its hardest, it's trying to suck air through a clogged filter that's filled with allergens, dust, dirt, dog hair, super glue, and anything else that could have gotten up in there. And it's causing a blockage. Exactly. Yeah. And it's a very clogged straw. So, and it's trying to force out as much cold air as possible. So you're putting such strain on your equipment that not only is it going to be a costly repair, it could cost you in your own health as well, because if it's 105 degrees outside and your air conditioning goes and nobody can get out to you for 3 days, it's going to be wildly uncomfortable in your house fast. We forget how important that is. So that's part of the reason why I thought this was such a home run idea, and why I want to get on board with it and make sure that it's all exactly everything you say it is because we should all be doing this. Yeah.
So it's just to clarify, if somebody online, go to Ion Home Kit. If you give me 5 minutes of your time and you fill this out. So what happens is, the second a package arrives that says Ion Home and Business, that's the cue. That means change the filter, change the battery. That's what that means. So that's when I say set it and forget it. So you're still going to have to change it, which they're really easy to change. Phase 2 down the line, I'd love to have technicians in vehicles and trucks and vans actually doing this for people, but I can't do that quite. That's like almost creating 2 companies at the same time. So when you see a box that says Ion Home and Business that shows up at your house, whatever's inside that box, the goal is put it from inside the box to in the refrigerator or in the the air filter or whatever it might be. That's the cue. So 5 minutes of your time, and you don't have to think about it again until it arrives. Once it arrives, take another 2 minutes and do it and then be done with it. Don't think about it. The next one will come when it's supposed to.
So once they set up for the service,
Yeah.
they don't need to go back in 3 months, 6 months, a year. You're automatically going to say, this is the best practice. This is what you're supposed to do. 3 months from now, as long as you don't cancel, we're just going to send you everything that you need.
Yes, exactly.
That's set it and forget it. That's pretty good.
Set it and forget it.
And so it's interesting, the other factoid, because this is I'll give a plug for I think it's Charmin, but I had no idea about this.
I think I know where you're going with this
too. I had no idea why they came up with this, but Charmin came out with the Forever Roll. Have you seen this thing?
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's a 1 month toilet paper roll, and when I saw it, it was on social media, and I was like, this has got to be a joke. So one night I'm like, I gotta buy this. I have to have it. And so I went online, paid $29.95. I got 3 rolls of this just gigantic toilet paper. It's obscene. It is so big, it's obnoxious. And so I get it, and I'm laughing, think it's funny. Amy's just beside herself because I put it in the downstairs bathroom. And
on the regular holder,
that's a 2/3 used roll. Right, and I keep the normal roll right next to it, so it's like it's enormous. So I was like, why did Charmin come up with this Forever Roll? And the answer was amazing to me. They designed and built the roll not for humor, not for maybe convenience, not for guys that don't know where their significant others keep the toilet paper, for millennials, because millennials are getting space that is smaller. That they don't have storage to keep things, and they don't want space to keep things. That they want stuff just in time, just when they need it, to last a month and be right there. They want to have the toilet paper out and have space in their closet for whatever. So this is a trend that I'm seeing with everything. Like people don't want big spaces. They don't want to have all sorts of storage. I've got 4. So before I came, I'm like, let me make sure that I know what I have in our house. We have 4 air filters. All 4 of them are different sizes.
So you need to buy 16 a year.
Yeah, exactly. 16 a year.
I mean, and who goes out and buys 16 air filters a year? It doesn't happen.
Right. And so and also that's one of those things, like, do you buy one set at a time? Last year I bought a whole bunch of them because I got some bulk discount. I did do one of the online filter systems. They just do air filters, which was almost the most confusing thing I've ever done because they have different ratings. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
They've got like A, B, C, D, okay to best.
Right.
And
I'm going to try and keep it to 3, Econo, allergen, and microallergen. I mean, you can get lost in the options.
Right.
Sometimes too many options it's too much.
Right. And, the whole process is just a pain in the neck. And then I've got 16 filters in my basement. And again, I don't know when the heck I'm supposed to change it. Water filter, forget it.
Some people go, you changed that? I thought that comes with the fridge. Like, that's it. It's like, no, you got to change that. You ever wonder why when you go to get water, it's like dripping out?
Yeah.
It's because it's completely blocked. It's a filter that's full of iron or deposits of whatever's in your drinking supply.
Right. And the age-old thing that I've seen a couple of times, especially with so I've got filters in the basement directly from the well, from the tank, and then I have filters on the refrigerator. And the age-old thing that the refrigerator will bing, 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 and tell you about it. And then there's a thing right there that says, hold for 3 seconds to reset.
I've done that too.
Because who wants to who wants to go out to Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever, or go online and go, oh my God, it's $50. Why am I going to order this? I could just push this button, and we don't think about
for another 6 months.
Right, what we're putting into our bodies. So before you go into that, so you're telling me that so in that 5 minutes, so someone's going to say, I have this type of refrigerator, and you're going to cover every single type of filter.
Creating it on the back end it's not easy. It's hard. But so you'll get to the website, and when you go through the checkout process, you'll come to a drop-down menu, and it'll be all the different manufacturers of refrigerators: Samsung, LG, GE, whatever it is. And then you select that. and then you go to the next drop-down menu, and that drop-down menu will further narrow it so that your options become even smaller, which go to the manufacturer. And yeah, you're gonna have to know a little bit about your water filter or your refrigerator. You're gonna have to know the size of your air filter. You're gonna have to know some of these things before you get to this point, and that's a hurdle we're trying to overcome, because it's a dry, cumbersome process. Like, I don't want to do this, but the way I look at it is set it and forget it. You never worry about it again. And you brought up millennials, and I think of millennials, Gen X, Gen Y. I think of just how culture has come these days, and all the subscription services that come to the home, HelloFresh, Peapod, delivery services, dog walking services. People pay an arm and a leg for landscape services. They pay people for things that are not essential at all. They're luxuries in life. Jelly of the Month Club. I don't know. I know people who have like Candy of the Month Club.
I love jelly. I didn't know there was a jelly. There is one.
That's a reference from Christmas Vacation.
Oh, all right. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I do.
Jelly
Yeah,
of the
no, I
Month
didn't
Club.
realize. I was like, geez, I missed that one.
But the way I look at it, one of the things that people have said to me is, another subscription service. And I look at it and say, this does not add to all the subscription services that people have. It genuinely doesn't. I'm not adding to the top of the pile. I'm making a point to come underneath the pile, because this provides clean air, clean water, and a safe environment. These are essentials. This should come before all of those things. It doesn't add to the top. It comes in at the bottom. And you're already buying it. You're just not doing it when you should do it. I think that's a very important distinction.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I just read about an app, and the name of it just escaped me, that it manages your subscriptions. It manages your subscriptions. It tallies and works off of your budget. So you set a budget number. You haven't seen this?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I'll get the name of it.
That's how many people have subscription services.
It literally pulls. You put in. It searches you give it your information, your login informations, what it would be, and it searches all of the subscriptions, pulls all of your accounts, puts them all in this one database, if you will, and now you can turn on or turn off your subscriptions and see what you have. And I can tell you that it's scary. Like, wow, it's like, just for me, when I was looking at kind of what we have. Like, we've got Netflix, Hulu, the YouTube cable channel, which is I didn't even realize that I kept that. But think of the
necessity of those. They're completely unnecessary.
Oh, they don't I would debate Netflix. I mean, Netflix is, when you got a 19-month-old that loves Word Party, and if it's not playing, he's going crazy. I would say Netflix is a necessity.
It's almost survival, I suppose. Yeah. Fair enough.
But yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you talk about all the food services. Like, people can cook. And instead you have, and we've done it. We've done the pre-made, and it's phenomenal. The quality food,
yeah, it's great.
You pay $60 a week, and you get 6 meals free. Free for me and free for Amy. But yeah, we overlook a lot of the necessities in life for the conveniences.
We take for granted. We skip past it.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that if anybody goes online for that 5 minutes and can't tell you the sizes or where the filters are, that's a problem in itself. Yeah. That's, or the number of smoke detectors you have, or where they are, what type they are, because there's hardwired and then there's battery operated only, and then if your house is, I think it's over 25 years old or 30 years old, it wasn't required to have a carbon monoxide. But now you have to have one, so that could be something separate, as easy as a device that's in a standard plug, has a battery backup.
Plug it right into the wall.
Right, that has a battery backup should you have a power outage. So knowing what you have, even if you rent, you should be taking that initiative to know.
Well, it's funny. There's in the commercial world, in the industrial world, in the business world, when you go to work, when you go to the office, there are mandates, there are requirements that are enforced through the fire department, that smoke detectors are working. I mean, they go out and they do inspections. In a residence, that doesn't exist. There's actually no mechanism to ensure everything is operable in a residence, aside from when a home is turned over. And then you have to have everything in working order, and there are certain requirements per state. Some states require a 10-year lithium-ion battery smoke detector. I think Massachusetts is one of them. But there's no mechanism. So the mechanism is you. You are responsible for that in your home. That's your job. It's nobody else's job. When you go out to the public sphere, that is enforced. So you're oftentimes safer out there than you are in your own home. And I don't want to sound alarmist at all, but it's not real until it's real.
Right.
You know, it's so the discovery of all this, to me, it became so compelling that I had to do it. I had to take the risk. I had to take the leap. I had to go for it.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision, as you mentioned. Why would you stop what you're doing when on the outside everything looks good?
Yep.
Because it's killing me not to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather fail, although I don't focus on that. I'd rather fail trying than not try at all.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about the commercial piece. A lot of people don't know this, but there was no regulations prior to 1958 in schools. And it was Our Lady of Angels, I think, or Our Lady of Peace in Chicago with the fire there. And after that, that's when all of the egress, the emergency exits, the emergency exit ladders, all that, because the kids and the teachers had no place to go. So that's a requirement in every school building, and then that's carried over when you look at the Station nightclub, which is right here in Rhode Island. There was no requirements for sprinkler systems, and they had the pyrotechnics, and sadly there was, I don't remember how many, but I mean, just one's too many, but there were a lot of deaths that were from that fire, and now these buildings are required and mandated, even older buildings, to update and have sprinkler systems and suppression systems. So you're right that we lose a lot of lives every year to house fires that could be preventable.
I think
people could survive with proper working equipment or with potentially a suppression system, in their bedroom.
I put out an article on LinkedIn the other day. I think you saw it. I don't know if you saw it. I think you did. And it was 60% of fires that result in death are because of a non-working smoke detector. I could have butchered that statistic a little bit. I'll put it out on my LinkedIn, and it'll be on my page, Ion Home Kit, when you go to it. But 60% of deaths in homes that are from a fire have no working smoke detectors. That's astounding to me. People die. And I genuinely believe, and call me crazy, but if I have 20,000 subscribers, a life will have been saved because of something. So either the smoke detector, either the battery, either the fire extinguisher, something. I do believe it. Just in numbers, from a numbers perspective, it has to. Something good has to come of it.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the next thing, which is when we talk about the fire aspect, and this is the whole reason why this podcast kind of came into play. You and I were talking, and you were telling me about your business, and I'm always intrigued to learn about people's new business ideas and everything else. And and you talked about the filters, and I was like, yeah, that's great. I changed my filters. I was trying to put myself in that position of being a consumer. And you say the water filters, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, I push a button on the refrigerator, and that's great. And then you talked about the batteries and the smoke detectors, and I said, well, I've got Amazon, I've got walls of batteries in my house, but I'll just wait for the chirp. But proactively, to save me a night of sleep, it wouldn't be bad if someone said, hey, send the batteries out and just change it, and those are set for the smoke detector and not an Xbox controller.
Exactly.
Which is great, because you got to be able to get
Kidda on them.
You got to be able to get your Fortnite in, and you don't want to go get controller batteries, and all of a sudden for the smoke detector, and you go, man, I can't play now. But you hit a point with me when I said, oh yeah, that's great, put a fire extinguisher under the sink. And you said, no, 2. You want 2. You want one under the sink in the kitchen, and you want one in your bedroom. And that triggered for me. One, I never heard that before. Went through all of the, the fire classes growing up. You watch the commercials in the 80s, because I was born in the 70s. And they show you, with the fire in the kitchen and all that stuff. I never heard that before, and that was the trigger point for me, and I only shared a little bit of the story. I'm going to let Jesse share it, but that was a trigger point for me that I was like, wow, I need to do that, because I don't know what I would do. Again, like you say, I've got 2 kids. Priority is to those 2 kids,
right.
Run through fire, do whatever. Middle of the night, I don't know what's going on. I don't have anything. I'm running. Jesse's a real life example of that. So Jesse went through that whole ordeal, and I called him. Like, I left you, and I called him immediately. I'm like, dude, I just talked.
I think we spoke 12 hours later.
Yeah, I just talked to this guy, and he's got a great business idea. And if you had a fire extinguisher in your bedroom, would your outcome have been different? Mm-hmm. He said, absolutely. And so for me, that was sold, right? Mm-hmm. Now I know I need to do it, but. I mean, if you're okay, you've been sitting here for the last 30 minutes, there's probably some emotional tie-in to this, this stuff. But, I mean, share your story.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking about, it's probably the first time I've shared this story without it being just in private settings, so bear with me. But your statement, it's not real until it's real, really resonated with me. So, not quite a year ago, at the end of September, we were woken up to what was working smoke detectors, thank goodness, going off throughout the whole house. And what was different about this time was there was an odor in the air, so we knew something was different. Mm-hmm. And so I spring out of bed, and I'm trying to locate where the odor's coming from amidst just the chaos of the fire, the smoke detectors going off. And I rush upstairs and finding it really difficult to find anything, and I see my son shoot out of his bathroom. So I run into his bedroom. He's having a really difficult time articulating what's happening. He's now 10, was 9, or excuse me, he's 9, was 8 when this happened. And I'm going into his bedroom, and the top side of his bunk bed is just engulfed in flames. And you don't really think about it, but it's so difficult to put a plan together, right? Unless you're somebody that's an EMS or a firefighter or somebody that does this regularly, to just respond. And so I'm rushing out of his bedroom. By that point, my wife's halfway up the stairs, and I'm like, call 911. I grab Bryson and rushing down the stairs, come back upstairs for my daughter at that point, who's in a different, separated from that room, and get her downstairs and get them outside. I'm looking everywhere I can for something to put this fire out, to try and control it. By the time I get back upstairs, it's the temperature's grown substantially. The smoke's starting to get really serious, and I'm helpless. Right, there's nothing I can do at that point. And that night, luckily enough, the firefighters responded. I think it was about 12 minutes, which is actually pretty good timing, respectively. But by that point, the majority of upstairs of our home had been destroyed. And
you just sat on the curb and watched it.
Yeah. So
Jesus.
Only saving grace was that I had closed his bedroom, which suffocated the fire. But one of the things that the firemen were really concerned about was they had to break the window to ventilate the room, and there could be backflash at that point, and then it could spark back up, mm-hmm. which was tough. So luckily, they were able to get that controlled. But I heard Josh tell the story, and I was sitting there thinking of how much different that fire extinguisher, where I knew it was, could have changed the dynamic and not put us out of our home for 6 months, mm-hmm. Dealing with insurance, which our insurance was great and really supportive, but repairs and coordinating. I mean, it was basically a full-time job coordinating subcontractors to repair
getting
my
your
home.
life back together.
On top of my full-time job, which my work was really, really supportive of me. And it just changed my life. And so,
and you were lucky. I am not lucky, but you got your kids.
Yeah.
You got your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it.
You got your pig too.
Yeah, right. So Wilbur was great, which was good. No bacon that night, which was,
He's got
really
pet pig.
good.
It's in the house.
Okay.
No, he does.
He wasn't the first animal I grabbed, but he was pretty close to that. So, but it's just, man, you walk back into your home after you've had that type of catastrophe, memories are gone. I could see the heat line on our second floor, and I hear the stories of the firemen. We have an open balcony as you go upstairs. It was so hot and so black that they were having to feel their way to find the fire. Mm-hmm. And they could have easily fallen over the banister. And so to walk back to the house and see ash and handprints up my wall, mm-hmm. leading to my daughter's bedroom, my son's bedroom, everything in my daughter's bedroom, every memory, stuffed animal, piece of furniture, picture, note that the daycare brought home, was completely destroyed. Right.
How'd the kids handle it?
My kids are really resilient, actually, and they that's one of the biggest blessings out of this is that very little impact to that. And all that could have been very easily prevented by having something available. And I worked in the kitchen for a long time, so using a fire extinguisher hood system is not a new concept to me, but just having it available. And you're right, we separate our professional life from home, and you just don't think about these things. So I think your concept's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, you're an unfortunate example of why I think this needs to exist. And I want to make it easy for people. I want to just deliver it to your door. And your story. Josh told me the story the day after he and I spoke.
Yeah.
And the fire extinguisher in the bedroom is really important. I'm not advocating for people to think that they're firemen at all. But if there's smoke, grab the fire extinguisher and either get out, like with it, hold it, or go get your kids with it, hold it so you can get there. Yeah. It's so important to me that, and your story is important to me. I wish I could do more, but right now what I want to do is, for the first 100 subscribers who subscribe to an Ion Home Kit, I want to make it so that, I am going to make it so that the second fire extinguisher they get is free. So that they will put it under their bed. Yeah. So if something happens to those, God forbid, and I hope nothing ever happens, but I'd like to give people that second fire extinguisher to be that line of defense so that at least 100 people might not face what you faced.
Yeah. Yeah, I can think about so many people I've worked with after the fact that it was, it just hit home for them and they started buying this and that. But, man, the cost of a fire extinguisher just to get all my kids' baby pictures back.
Right. And the thing, a frustrating thing is you tell this story and sometimes you tell the story and it falls on deaf ears. That people might walk away and forget it. And it's like, don't forget what I experienced. Go buy a fire extinguisher. Yeah. A friend of mine up the street, I was talking to him the other day about this concept. He said, I bought a fire extinguisher and moved in the house. When did you move in the house? 30 years ago. Oh, well, maybe you should buy a new one. Get one in your bedroom.
You got to take a look at the charge level.
Yeah.
Isn't that what is the charge level?
This charge levels, they expire anywhere from 5 to 10 years. So they do have an expiration date. They don't last forever.
Yeah.
So I'd like to volunteer if you're going to, because I think you need to also have a how-to video. I've never actually done one, so I think if you do a how-to video, I should be the person that does it and just blast something.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's...
Put it right on the website.
I mean, I think that's one of the... jokes aside, I think that's, Jesse just touched on something, and you both kind of touched on something, which is, it's not meant for you to be a firefighter.
No.
And it's also meant to give you an added something.
Yeah. Lifeline.
To prepare yourself, a lifeline. And I think that the worst thing that could happen would be the blind assumption that you have this fire extinguisher, and it's amazing how people really don't know. They go, I've got this fire extinguisher, and if I need it, it's going to magically work. You got to pull the pin, you got to hold the handle, you got to do this. How do you aim it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you aim it at the fire? Because a lot of people, just out of pure nervousness, might aim up when you really want to go to the base of the fire. I don't even know. But to do something like that,
that's a great idea.
Would be something to do. But I think that the first 100 customers to get to guarantee a second fire extinguisher for them to put in their bedroom is huge. I think that the whole thing is. I think that the whole thing. Sadly, today I have read more reports and how flammable our homes are. Between the synthetic materials, the flammable materials, the combustible materials, the natural gas leaks, all these things. I've never seen such a vulnerability to fire, with a million different reasons for it to happen. So equip people, like you say, it falls on deaf ears. I think that, I listened to Jesse's story. I think I talked to you while it was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, this is in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah, I think accidentally butt dialed you and
looked
at my phone and
he did. He pocket dialed me, and I heard all the stuff. That's right. I'm glad I'm on your favorite pocket dial.
Yeah.
His in-laws live next door to him, and so I ended up calling Carsey, his father-in-law, making sure everything, and he just screamed that the house was on fire and hung up, and I didn't know what was going on there. But that's, there's so many different aspects to that, minimizing impact on life based on damage. Jesse was lucky because his in-laws lived next door and he moved in, but being displaced, the memories.
But there's trauma.
Yeah.
Absolute trauma. It changes
trauma.
you.
Yeah. I can remember once you getting real emotional with me just thinking about, your kids.
Yeah.
And, I could never imagine, something like that and being put in that position of we're responsible for our kids every day. We don't realize how important that position is.
Yeah.
And we take a lot of it for granted, and a lot of it is just cleaning diapers and wiping noses. But we're responsible for our kids ultimately in the outcome. And you were put to the ultimate test, and you saved them, and you did the right things, and that's got to tear on you, each and every single day. And I'm sure that
while they're pretty low point.
Yeah, while they're pretty resilient and everything else, I'm sure Bryson someday is going to go up to you and be like, "Hey, Dad, thanks for doing that solid and running."
My dad's a hero. You see this in the movies. That's my dad.
Yeah. Not only did he save me, but he saved everybody, including Wilbur. So that's pretty awesome, man. So I appreciate you sharing that story, because I know it takes a lot to open up. I always say that everybody's got a story, and most people aren't comfortable to tell it. And for you to say it, tell it to the microphone, who knows is going to be watching, is huge. Appreciate you coming up and doing that. So,
pleasure.
Yeah, you sharing your story is definitely, I hope, resonates with people, and I hope people take it seriously. And thank you, because it does take. Most people would never want to talk about that ever again.
Yeah.
Close the chapter, be done with it. But you've somehow managed to turn it into a learning experience to share with people, and good on you. That's amazing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, if this does one thing, and I'm gonna plug you, but I'm gonna tell people that regardless, get fire extinguishers, get your house in order with filters and everything else, and take care of your space, and think about the importance of your space. We overlook it. So that's my Switzerland neutral. Take care of yourself first and foremost. But let's get to your business, because your business is going to launch. I really want it to be successful. I'm a customer. As soon as the site's up, my 4 filters, my 16 filters for the next year, my water filters for whenever they need to be gotten, the batteries for the 4 smoke detectors, or however many. Now I'm thinking about how many I've got now. So it feels stupid. And
you're buying it anyway.
And I'm one of the first 100. Just so it's said, site's not up. I've already committed, so I'm one of the first 100 on the free fire extinguisher. But let's talk about, how are people going to be able to see you? How do they find this, and what do they do?
So the creation of this has been very fascinating. If I could just step back a little bit and talk about maybe the evolution of it a little bit more. I know I talked about it before, but so after I came up with the idea, 6 years ago, and then recently went back to it and then repolished everything. So I started looking at marketing. Marketing is the key to this. Getting in front of as many people as possible, and in an effective way, the most effective way as possible.
Facebook ads, social media
ads, SEO, search engine optimization, press releases, the whole shebang. My original thought was, I'm going to hire a marketing manager. And then I thought, okay, I hire a marketing manager. I'm still going to be standing over the shoulder of the marketing manager saying, yep, that looks good, or no, don't do that. And truth be told, my college degree is in marketing, but that was like 15 years ago. I don't do that anymore. I'm not that good at it. So to ask for my approval on something like that is kind of insane, if you ask me. So I reached out to a friend of mine who does marketing, and she works for a very large company, and I started to ask her advice. Should I go for a marketing manager or a marketing agency? And she's like, definitely agency. I said, well, here's an idea. You're brilliant at marketing, and her friend is also brilliant at marketing. They work for massive companies at high executive levels. And I said, well, and this is somebody I've known. This is an Easton person. This is somebody I've known for 20, 25 years. And she's a very strong personality. And I am too. So I could never work for you. You could never work for me. So how the heck are we going to do this? So, well, I set up my company. Now why don't you set up your company, and I'll contract your company to work for my company, and you create all the marketing. And so once I did that, she teamed up with her friend who was, in marketing and brilliant. And I started to see what they started to create and the ideas. And I'm like, this is way bigger than what I was thinking. What you guys are developing is like far more than I ever thought, at least out of the gate for launch. So I hired them. I have a web developer. They're working with web developers. So now when it's going to launch from East Coast to West Coast. At the end of August, by the time this airs, it will have launched. It will be live. Marketing will still be going on. You should see it in your Facebook feeds. You should see it in news articles. You should see it in your social media feeds. I do plan for it to just really cover the country from east to west, and with as much support as possible. One of the things that I said to them in the beginning was, I don't just want to build a company. I want to build a company. I want to build a brand, and I want to build a culture where these things are important, because I think they're important, and I think everybody deep down also thinks that they're important. So that was where the marketing arm came from, and so people will wind up seeing it all through social media and through Google searches and press releases and anything else that I can get.
So what's the website? We're going to listen to this when this is published, because this has been a tough podcast. This is the number 34. I haven't had a podcast recording on hold. 33
I know, and
other
I thank
ones,
you so much
33
for that.
other
I really
ones have been recorded
Yes.
and put out. So this has been trying to word this properly. So the assumption and the idea is we're live. You're listening to this.
It's live.
It's live right now.
Yep.
Where are they going?
Yeah, ionhomekit.com.
ionhomekit.com.
Correct.
They're going to fill in their information there. They're going to spend their 5 minutes. They're going to enter in the secure site their payment. And then every 3, 6, 9, 12 months, whatever it is, boom, the box shows up, do your job, 5 minutes, and you're done.
Exactly. That's it. Set it and forget it.
And the first 100 people, and this is podcasting, be released the same time that you're launching your website, same day. So the first 100 people, second fire extinguisher is free.
It's on me.
Perfect.
And Jesse.
Nope.
But Jesse shared his amazing story.
Wonderful. Well, listen, my hope is that you're wildly successful. I think this is a great idea. I think it's a great market. It's a necessity and not a convenience. I owned a spring water business in the late 90s, early 2000s with my dad. Back then, I used to always say spring water was a luxury and not a necessity. And today it's a necessity because clean water is very hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a necessity for people's health and safety. So I think you're onto something. I hope that you're incredibly successful when we're sitting here in your office in some new chairs, August 5th, 2020, negotiating, monetizing my podcast. So
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I'm
do
excited.
believe it.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So I'm going to wrap up. We're going to go have a beverage, celebrate, have a pizza at the Villa, and catch up a little bit because I don't get to spend a lot of time with Jesse as much as I'd like to. And we're going to sign off here. I really appreciate it. I made a joke as Marc was talking about his business about Facebook ads. I have gone for almost 14 months. I have not spent a single dollar in a Facebook ad, a Google ad, or anything else. I've got a garbage website that I built with GoDaddy, which it's not their fault. I'm just awful. I'm building a new website on Squarespace, which is a great product. It seems like it's going to be really a much better website for me once I actually figure out how to put it all together. But this whole Be Awesome movement is entirely through you. It's through you listening. It's through you following, sharing, liking, doing your ratings and reviews, telling your friends. You know, the greatest example and one of the greatest experiences I had was this Jarheads Motorcycle Club effort. Sunday night of that motorcycle accident, there was $299,000 raised across the country. I put a 4-day challenge that 1%. We could raise 1% equivalent to what happened in the country. I've got 232 followers on Facebook or whatever it is. I know there's a ton more people that watch. I make everything public. Same thing with LinkedIn. Same thing with Instagram. But I believe those small numbers of people that I knew about and the followers that I had, we could do that with 100% of 100, the flag donation from Chris Mills at Shoveltown Flag. And in 4 days, we raised $3,000. And that told me that we're onto something. We're doing the right things. We're making the differences. And it's really about the quality and not the quantity with Be Awesome. This is growing. I love seeing people sending me shirts with the Be Awesome shirt. Pick Jesse up and he's got the Be Awesome shirt. Saw Kenny Wertz going to pick out flooring last Sunday. I walk in and he's just naturally wearing his shirt. So, it's really happening, and it can't happen without you. And I really appreciate you for that. We've got some really exciting stuff coming up. Our money is going to Camp Southern Ground, which is a phenomenal program just in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's a camp that helps provide camp experiences for kids that have socioeconomic challenges, kids that don't have homes, don't have places to go when they're out of school for the summer, kids with diverse abilities, which Jared Lehman shared with me back in May, which is kids with special needs that have that more specifically, it's a lot of kids with that fall on the autism spectrum. And then in the off season and during the summer as well, but they have a great support mechanism for veterans and families. So it checks all the boxes. We're going to be giving $3 of every shirt. I've got a couple of other incentive programs for myself that I want to really give a significant amount of money with your support through the end of the year. So buy the shirts. They're online. As you put the shirt on, you do 3 things. The first thing you're going to do is anybody that sees it, it's going to remind them to be awesome. Second thing it's going to do when you look in the mirror, it's going to remind you to be awesome. And the third thing it's going to do is it's going to put $3 towards a charity that's worthwhile. It's going to help our future, our kids that are making a difference in the world. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, please follow me, please share, please talk to people, like, comment, ratings and reviews as always gets you a prize. Let me know it's you. Send me an email to Josh, Josh, @beawesome.com, BEAUSM, for those new listeners that don't know how I spell awesome. But send me an email with your name and address, where to send it to, and size of shirt, and I'll put one in the mail free on me. So until episode 35, thanks for listening. Appreciate you, Mark, for having us here at the galactic headquarters of Ion Home and Business, and Jesse for traveling up from North Carolina. He's got a first edition autographed Be Awesome coffee mug, only one in existence. I gave him a coffee mug and he told me that he wouldn't take it unless I signed it. So and remember, in order to do awesome, you got to be awesome. Have a great day.